It's September 2nd, 2024. I'm Todd Dunn, and today I am aboard my Allied Princess 36 Sequester. I came over here today just to do a little checking. Night before last, it rained pretty hard. We got about 3/10 of an inch of rain, and didn't come over yesterday because it was kind of muggy and miserable, but it's much nicer today. So came over to check the boat out, and I'm glad to say not a drop of water got inside, which is good. It means all of the work I put into leak prevention is working. So that's fantastic. Anyway, that's not what I want to talk about today. One of the things occasionally get people commenting about is retiring here on Mount Desert Island, Maine. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about how much it costs to actually live here. And I'm going to give sort of base costs for my house, and that's a house with 2 people living in it. And I'm going to make some assumptions. I'm going to assume that the people who are retiring here are 65 or older and are on Medicare. And so we'll talk about, the basic costs you're going to have: property tax, electricity, phone, etc. And we'll run down those and give you a baseline for what it costs to live on Mount Desert Island, Maine. Okay, so what does it cost to live on Mount Desert Island, Maine? Well, I'm going to use my expenses as an example. Now, some of these things are going to be quite variable depending on what kind of house you have, how big it is, how old it is, etc. And just what your lifestyle is. But this is what we pay, and I've split this up into several areas. First off, utilities. Everybody pays utilities. Now, we live in Tremont, Maine, so we do not have town sewer or town water. So we have a septic tank and a well, and those don't cost very much. I think our septic tank, the pump out averages, maybe $25 a year. So that's pretty trivial, and I've left it off because of that. And the well, the only cost is electricity, and we also use some salt in our ion exchange system to get rid of hardness, and that's really cheap. I mean, it's like $7 a bag. We go through 2 bags a year. So the well and the septic are very, very cheap, and it effectively costs nothing until the well pump fails, and then it will cost something. We also do not have garbage collection, so in our case, we just periodically, once a month or so, take our garbage to the transfer station. And it doesn't cost anything except the time and gas to do the 7-mile drive over there. So I didn't include that. But if you lived in Southwest Harbor, Bar Harbor, or Mount Desert, you would have town water, town sewer, and a garbage collection fee. Parts of Mount Desert and Bar Harbor and parts of Southwest Harbor don't have city water or sewer, so you wouldn't have those fees there, but you will have other fees. Anyway, so utilities. Let's look at the things that are left. Electricity. We pay about $650 a year for electricity. Now, electricity here on the island, if you get it from the only power company there is, it runs 25 cents a kilowatt hour right now, which is cheaper than it was last year. It was 29 something last year, so they lowered the price a little bit, which is good. We like that. We use most of our power in the winter when our heating system does use a little bit of electricity to run fans and pumps and things like that. And not so much in the summer. In the summer, Like this month, our electric bill is probably going to be like 20 bucks. In the winter, it can be 70 or more. So just depends on, how much we're heating and everything. So that is a fairly, low cost for a lot, compared to a lot of people down south. The main reason our electricity is so low is we, like most people here on the island, don't have air conditioning. This year we've had 3 scorching hot days where it went above 80, and on one day it got to 82. And I thought I was going to die that day. But most of the time it's in the 70s or 60s, and you just don't need air conditioning. Just open some windows. And if you're further inland in the middle of the island, you might want it. And if you're at the northern end of the island, closer to mainland, you might want it too. But most of the time you can get by without it. What about phone? Well, we have a landline. And we just have the absolute bare minimum service on the landline. We can't make long distance calls or anything like that. We don't have, caller ID or, some sort of messaging system. Just the bare bones. It's a phone. And that costs $432 a year. And it keeps going up every year. They're always finding new charges. We also have cell phones, which we use for long distance. But a lot of Mount Desert Island is a kind of minimalist zone for cell signal. We have cell signal on the 3rd floor of our house, but not down in the living room. So, if we want to make a long distance call, we go up to the 3rd floor and make the call. Consequently, we don't have fancy cell service. We have kind of bare bones, cheap cell service. And for 2 phones, that runs $200 a year, which isn't bad. Then internet. Internet is expensive here on Mount Desert Island. If you want fast internet, you have one choice. That is Spectrum. And for internet at our house is $87 a month. So that's $1,044 a year. So far, that is our biggest single utility item. And that's going to be pretty standard everywhere on the island. I mean, you could go with some sort of satellite system, but most people just have cable. What about television? We don't have cable TV. A lot of people can't live without it, so that's going to cost you more. But if we want to watch television, we either stream it on the internet or we go with over the air. And let's see, what do we get? We get ABC, CBS, NBC. I think there's a Fox affiliate that we can get over the air, and there's also the CW. And there might be another one, I don't know what it is. Oh, and we get Maine Public Television if we want to. So those are all perfectly good signals. There are places on the island where you wouldn't get the signals. If you're on the wrong side of one of the hills, you might not get any signal. And then if you wanted television there, you'd have to go with cable. So, but we don't have that. Then the last big utility item is heat. This is Maine, after all. It does get cold in the winter. It does snow. Now here on the coast of Maine, particularly on Mount Desert Island, it is not as cold as pretty much any place else in Maine, with the exception of the islands that are further out into the ocean. So we don't have to heat that much. Now, our house is heated by a propane-fired combi boiler that also produces our hot water. It is a very efficient system. It's somewhere between 97 and 98% thermal efficiency. We replaced an old oil-fired boiler with that, and the efficiency jump more than made up for the lower thermal content of propane. And also propane for the last few years has been a lot cheaper than oil per gallon. So we pay $2,080 for heat. And we supplement that with a wood stove we have in the living room, but we burn windfall from the property. I mean, we live on a wooded lot, and enough trees blow down every year that we have plenty of firewood. Matter of fact, I have firewood that has been in the stack for 4 or 5 years that'll be bone dry when I finally get to burning it. So that brings our utility costs to $4,406 for the year. And that's, that's high in my opinion, but that's mostly driven up by heat and the internet. If you had lobster boat going by, if you had a bigger house or an older house, our house was built in '95 and is quite well insulated and sealed. An older house that wasn't as well insulated and sealed, a drafty place, you might pay considerably more, particularly if you heat with oil. I mean, I know people who spend $1,000 a month from December through March for heat, and that's pretty normal. Okay, what else? The next category I'm going to talk about is insurance, and this is our biggest category because I put our health insurance in here. Homeowners insurance. There's a lot in the news lately about homeowners insurance, skyrocketing in places, doubling, tripling every year. Well, for the last 3 years, ours has been going down, which I'm not too concerned about. And our homeowners insurance, which is a full replacement coverage for our house, which the insurance company thinks is worth about $600,000 for the house, not the land, is $817 a year. So that's not bad. Then there's car insurance. We have 2 cars, a 2015 Subaru Forester and a 2019 Ram 1500 pickup. And they cost $490 and $600 a year, respectively, for insurance, for a total of $1,090 a year. And the last big ticket item is health insurance. Now, we of course are older and retired, so we have Medicare, and the Part B premium for the 2 of us comes to about $4,200 a year. It's a little less than that, but not much, like maybe $2 less. And if we had a Medicare Advantage plan, that would be most of what we would pay. We would pay some co-pays and things like that. But we don't, for various reasons. We have G supplement plans, and for the 2 of us, those plans come to $5,592 a year. So you can see it's a pretty expensive add-on, but we have reasons for that. Last year, for example, my medical expenses came to just a little bit under $100,000, and my wife's not far behind, because we're old, we have things that are wearing out, and we need replacement parts and things like that. So insurance, $11,699 a year. That's a pretty big chunk of money. For insurance. What about our car costs? We do drive our cars. We don't drive much, though. We drive a lot less than we used to. I think on the 2 cars last year, we drove about 4,500 miles. So gas for the 2 cars runs about $700 a year. That's mostly for the pickup truck, which gets pretty crummy mileage. And we have maintenance, oil changes, annual inspections, things like that. And those come to $215 a year. Other maintenance, well, we had to put new tires on both cars last year, but we bought both cars new from a dealer that had this thing they call Tires for Life, which as long as we own the cars, they will provide us with free tires. I think they thought we'd trade them off before the tires wore out, but we didn't. And so we got free tires on both cars, and we probably won't need new tires for quite a long time. Um, so total car operations run about $915 a year. Now we get into some things that are pretty variable and dependent on your lifestyle. The next one is food. And people can spend a lot more than we do or a lot less. Now we spend about $5,000 a year for food. One of the reasons it's that low is that my wife doesn't eat beef, which means that I don't either. And beef's expensive, but we don't buy any. But we do, make up for it by eating sort of local foods like scallops and lobster, things like that, cheap stuff, which if you know how to buy it is actually pretty cheap. But we don't eat it that much. So $5,000 a year covers our food budget, and that includes wine and beer and things like that, and snacks. And then another big ticket item is property tax, and this is going to vary quite a bit depending on how your house is valued and and where you are on the island. Tremont, where we live on the southwest side of the island, and Mount Desert have quite low property taxes, under 1% of assessed value. Southwest Harbor and Bar Harbor have higher property taxes because they have run into some major expenses in the last few years, and that's pushed their property tax rate up. For example, Bar Harbor is building a new grade school. That's going to cost them something like $70 million, which is a lot for a town of 5,000 people. Southwest Harbor just had a major upgrade done to their sewage treatment plant that cost something like $18 million, which is really a lot for a town of 1,200 people. They did get some federal money to help with that. Anyway, houses here are supposedly assessed at full market value, but our town in particular has a different idea of what full market value is, and our house is assessed probably at about half of that, and they just reassessed it, and as a consequence our property taxes are pretty low. And I should say a little bit about property taxes here in Maine, especially small town Maine. Property taxes are paid to the town, and they support town operations, the public school, and a little bit of money goes to the county, but in our case, our town, it's like 5%. But that's it. That's what property taxes go for. And property taxes are set every year by looking at two things. One is the total assessed value of the land in town, and number two is what the actual town budget is. And our town budget is voted on by the people of the town every spring at our town meeting. And if the people who put the budget together tried to make a 50% increase in the town budget, I guarantee you that wouldn't pass. So our taxes are relatively low, and our house, because of the below market value assessment, even though it was just reassessed, is taxed at $3,380 a year. That does include that we have what's called a homestead exemption, but that isn't very big. I mean, I think we take $30,000 off the top, and then the property taxes are calculated. So that makes a difference of about $300. So pretty low. If you bought a brand new house, or if you came here and bought a house, your house would probably end up being assessed for the second year you lived here at pretty close to what you paid for it. The first year it would be assessed at what it was before you bought it. So you could end up with a pretty big property tax bill. If you bought a $1 million house, you could end up with a $10,000 to $15,000 property tax bill. But, just buy a cheaper house. So what's that all add up to? For us, with the Medicare supplement plans, it adds up to $25,400. That is our base cost to live here on Mount Desert Island. Now, if we had Medicare Advantage plans, our base cost would be about $19,800. So basically, if you own your house, own your car, you don't have any debt, it's not that expensive to live here. Somewhere for us between about $20,000 and $25,000. And so you can live quite comfortably. I mean, I'm sitting on our yacht right now. But that's another expense that I didn't include because not everybody is going to own a boat. And the details of how you keep your boat are a big factor in how much it costs. I've done other videos on that in the past. So anyway, it's not a particularly expensive place to live once you own your house. But that's the big problem. Right now, housing on the island is, by historic standards, very high. Tremont, which always used to be the cheapest town in the island, has one house currently listed for I think it's $460,000. It's a 2-bedroom, 800 square foot cottage. And I don't know if it's well insulated or not, but it's very small, so it shouldn't be too bad to heat. And that's pretty much the only house. That's the only one under 500,000. And there are a couple, in the 750, 780K range, and then the rest of them are over $1 million. And the most expensive one is like 6.5. So it's not cheap to buy a house here. Southwest Harbor, I think there's a house in Southwest Harbor listed at $550, and another one at $490. They just lowered the price. For an old 1900 house with 3 bedrooms and a single bath. But there are a lot of other houses in Southwest Harbor way over $1 million. And the last time I checked, the median house price in Southwest Harbor was about $1.3 million. Mount Desert, well, Mount Desert is expensive. That's where all the really expensive homes on the island are. I mean, you can go to Northeast Harbor, for example, and a bargain basement house in Northeast Harbor will set you back $750,000. And just a bungalow over there is probably going to cost you $1 million too. And Seal Harbor is worse. Then there's Bar Harbor. Bar Harbor is expensive too, not as expensive as the rest of the island, because on the rest of the island there are no limits on using homes for short-term rentals, which has pushed home prices up. Bar Harbor, they passed a limit, and that immediately had a negative effect on home prices. So you can pick up a house in the village part of Bar Harbor for $600,000, maybe $750,000, up to $5 or $6 million. But the median home price over there right now is probably hovering $800,000 or $900,000. So you're going to pay a good deal of money to buy a house here. And I'm going into some time on house buying when we talk about cost of living here, because there's essentially no rental market, because the short-term rental market, because of the tourists that come to Acadia National Park, is so lucrative that nobody rents their house out year-round, or very, very few people do. And if you look around the island at any given time, like right now, you probably won't find a single house available for year-round rental. Lots of houses you can rent by the night or by the week, you know, a couple thousand a week, 5,000 a week. There's one here in Southwest Harbor that I think is going for 20,000 a week. You know, it's a pretty nice house. It's waterfront with a dock and all that. But, you know, because of the short-term rental market being very, very robust here, there are essentially no long-term rentals. So if you move here, you're going to have to buy. You just don't have a choice. So you're going to need to budget, you know, $750 to $1 million for a house. And you're probably then going to have to budget somewhere in the $7,500 to $12,000 a year in property taxes, which is going to push your cost up. Now, we've owned our house since 1999, yeah, which is one of the reasons that our taxes are as low as they are, because they're starting at what we paid for it in '99, and it hasn't sold, so it hasn't been pushed up to the pure market value. So anyway, that's what it looks like. If you buy a house, you know, after you've paid for the house, and if you don't owe any money on your vehicles, you can live here pretty cheaply. You know, depending on your health insurance, you'll probably get away with not much over $2,000 a month. In our case, maybe $2,150. And of course, we have this expensive hobby that adds quite a bit to that. But you know, if you're only paying $2,150 a month to live here, you can easily afford an extra $500 to $1,000 a month for your yacht. Anyway, so that's what it costs me to live on Mount Desert Island, and you know what you might look at in terms of your costs to live here once you buy a house. Okay, hope you found it interesting. Thanks for watching.